That afternoon, Flight 271 from San Diego to Chicago began its journey like any other. In first class, where passengers typically wore suits, sipped sugar-free apple juice, and tapped away on laptops, a man appeared who would soon shake the entire aviation industry to its core. His name was Luther Bishop, a 64-year-old black man with a solid build, close-cropped salt and pepper hair, and eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. He wore a light brown blazer, crisply pressed slacks, and polished leather shoes. In his hand was no tablet or latest smartphone, just an old copy of I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou and a first-class boarding pass for Seat 1A. This flight was a quiet gift to himself, a celebration after retiring as the director of the Bronx Public Library in New York, where he had spent over 30 years helping underprivileged kids believe in the power of knowledge. No family in tow, no business agenda, just a peaceful journey and a few pages of poetry in the sky. As Luther stepped onto the plane, the flight attendant nodded with a professional smile. He returned it with a warm, "How's your day going so far?" His deep voice made her pause for a beat. It was the kind of voice you only heard from people who had weathered storms and come out still gentle. He took his seat, opened his book, placed his coat over his lap, adjusted the air vent above, when a voice interrupted. "Excuse me, sir. Are you sure you're in the right seat?" It was the captain of the flight, Craig Mallory, a white man in his 40s who wore aviator sunglasses even in the cockpit and referred to crew members as the kids. He looked at Luther with barely concealed skepticism. Luther didn't respond right away. He calmly closed his book and held out his boarding pass. "Yep. Seat 1A, he said, voice steady. Craig glanced at the ticket, then at Luther, then back again. He gave a half smirk. "Well, I guess anyone can sit up here these days," he muttered, not loudly, but loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. He didn't need to say anything overtly racist. The tone did all the work. Across the aisle, a young freelance journalist named Natalie shot a glance at her husband, who was already pulling out his phone. The journalist in him didn't hesitate. He hit record. Luther didn't flinch. He didn't frown, didn't argue, didn't turn his head. He simply replied, "I'm in my seat. I paid for it." The 18-second video hit TikTok within the hour. At first, just a few hundred views. Then thousands. Then hundreds of thousands. The clip was captioned, "Who gets to sit in 1A?" No explanation was needed. Captain Craig's voice said it all. Luther Bishop, a man who only wanted a quiet ride, suddenly became the center of a national conversation. What the crew didn't know was that Luther had once testified before city councils about equal access to information for people of color, had authored papers on coded language in public spaces, and had gone head-to-head with senior officials over funding for underprivileged libraries. He wasn't the kind to raise his voice. He was the kind who made people regret raising theirs. The video spread across Twitter, Reddit, and eventually national TV by that evening. People began researching who he was. Photos of him reading with kids at the library, clips of his speeches to college students, and quotes from his favorite authors began circulating widely. Soon after, the airline launched an internal investigation. Captain Craig said nothing publicly, but former crew members and past passengers started sharing their own stories about his arrogance and subtle bigotry. One even posted a recording of him saying, "Go ahead, complain to HR, they always have my back." Within days, the airline issued a statement. Captain Craig Mallory had been suspended indefinitely. At the same time, they announced a revamp of their entire training on professional conduct and equity in first class. The new initiative? It was named the Bishop Code. When asked for his thoughts, Luther simply smiled. "I don't need a code named after me," he said. "I just hope that next time someone like me sits in 1A, no one asks if they belong there." But Luther's story didn't end on that flight. Schools began inviting him to speak. Other airlines reviewed their internal protocols. And in a modest home in suburban New York, the man who just wanted to read poetry in peace had unknowingly written a new chapter for an entire system.